We're just want to remind everybody about the ways to engage. Want to make sure that your phone is muted most of the time. But if you want to say something, there are two ways you can say something. One is by using the chat, and we have a very active chat. You're welcome to use it at any point. A question, a comment, anything can go in the chat at any time. I'll be minding the chat and reading your comments when it's appropriate. And the other way that you can be heard is to raise your hand. We would ask you to raise your hand only when you want to speak, because it's a little bit, then you have to, we have to unmute you and you have to unmute yourself, and then but then you can speak. And if you have too much to say that will go in the chat, feel free to raise your hand. So those are the ways to engage. And then whenever Be Strong Families does anything, we have agreements, and this is in recognition that we co-create this safe space together. Then it requires all of us really directing our energy to being here now and not multitasking. And then, being careful about how we engage in the chat and how we speak. And be sure that you're not using caps in the chat unless you're wanting to scream at people. So it's like the chat hygiene. So thank you very much. And if you if you agree to these agreements, if you can do as our regulars are doing and just write, I agree, we can get started. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here with you, co-hosting.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Wow, I'm just seeing all of these folks agreeing. Fantastic. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm broadcasting here from my home office in Southern California. Um, I want to start by giving you a chance to bring your whole self into this space. We have such limited time. I'm going to ring 4 bells. And in that time, please make yourselves comfortable. If you're able to be somewhere where there's some natural light and an ability to look outside, that would be nice. Notice where your breath is and notice how you're sitting or standing. I tend to stand when I'm working, but here we go. Again, thank you for being here and choosing this time for yourself. I know that when you choose this kind of time for yourself, it will have a ripple effect on other people that will encounter you after this time. So I'm going to move to the next slide. Ask Din, who is helping on the tech side, to move to the first slide. We're talking about chaos, self-compassion, moving into yourself. So this is the thing that I want people to understand, and that is that in welcoming yourself to now, what you have available is your breath, your posture, and what I call a state of relaxed concentration that you can cultivate. We're living in true chaos now. Guidance is ambiguous. The public discourse is taking us into polarized places where people don't even feel safe asking sincere questions for fear of what could happen as a consequence of revealing you really don't know. We're in a very intolerant moment, which then generates, of course, a lot of anxiety. Fear itself has been a driver for quite some time in our society. It's been happening because of the fact that change has become so rapid and so intense. And people, institutions, governments, quote, leaders, nobody really has the ability to be as nimble as the actual experience of living is requiring right now. So some of you will have children at home. You are maybe in a community that has some clarity about whether school will start or not. Some of you have elders at home. You may have a situation where you have to be concerned about pre-existing conditions or not. You may have visitors that were here before March 16th or so of this year. And they may be able to go back to their home base or not. Everything is in flux. What do you have available to give yourself some space? And in doing so, compassion. How do you give that to others if you don't have the ability to even do it for yourself? So you need to stop, is what I'm suggesting. And what's available is breath, posture, and what I call relaxed concentration. Let's move to the next slide. So here's COVID. You know, people talk about freedom, individual rights. We have a shared narrative in our community, or maybe not. Can you and how will you live with the uncertainty of this time? Because that's what this pandemic has brought. It has brought uncertainty. Let's move to the next slide. So this is a saying that I heard from a teacher many years ago. Every encounter is the last encounter, Angela. The same conditions will not exist. They don't exist moment by moment. When we started this conversation a few minutes ago on self-compassion, conditions have already changed to this moment where you're looking at this slide. Now, what would you do and how would you behave if you knew that every encounter would be the last? It won't happen again, ever. In my morning routine, I regularly walk along the ocean. One morning, these birds just happened to land right in front of me. It was a beautiful morning. There were young people out on the water surfing. And I was walking barefoot in the wet sand. And I thought, okay, I'll never have this encounter again. But thanks to my smartphone, I was able to capture this moment. And I wanted to share it with you to reflect on the fact that all these elements came together in this single now. The water, the kids, the feel of the sand, the birds. Let's go to the next slide. So what happens if you can really feel now? Are you noticing in this moment? How's your body feeling? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What smells are coming to you? Do you have anything in your tasting ability, your touch? How is the seat touching your body? And then in this other realm, when you look at a piece of art like this, can you feel this flow? All of your senses are available to you, and then your consciousness. To be reminded of it and to be led back to it, it's all yours to begin with. But we forget. Why do we forget? Because we get educated, right? Education is actually, in the formal sense, another thing that we have to unpack to get back to the basics of who you are and what you're about. You're all here because you found yourselves wanting to be in a place where you can nurture something. We're calling it being stronger for yourself and your families. But something has brought 70 some people to this particular moment. And it wasn't the speaker, and it wasn't Katie telling you you have to come here. You made a choice. Let's move to the next slide. So people talk about finding the calm in the chaos. How do we do that? You know, at the eye of every hurricane or tornado, there's a very, very quiet spot. How do you take yourself to that place in your everyday existence with all kinds of things moving your mind, your body, and your spirit in very divergent directions? Again, the method is available to you, has always been available to you, but maybe you haven't attended to it. We're back to breath, posture, and relaxed concentration. Let's move to the next slide. So here we have another image that came on one of my morning walks. The sky this morning took my breath away. So I would like you to try this from wherever you are. Take a breath and fully exhale through your mouth. Imagine pulling all that stale air out of your body. One more time. Now, take a breath in and very gently exhale. Really focus on the exhale. So maybe you can see my gesture here. I hope you can. I don't know what the visual is on your end of the screen. But when I raise my hand up, take a breath and bring it all the way down past your diaphragm into your belly if you can. Hold it and then slowly, slowly, slowly exhale. Take another breath. Slowly, slowly, slowly exhale. The focus is on the exhale. Your body will naturally inhale. If it doesn't, bad things happen. So don't worry about taking the breath. Focus on letting it go, but in a slow and steady way. There's a phenomenon that occurs that literally grounds you when you focus on that exhale. If I were with you in person, I would do a demonstration that you would all experience, where I have people do the OK sign and hold that with some firmness and partner up with someone. That other person is going to try and separate your finger from your thumb by using both hands. First, without thinking about breath, and then taking a breath, and on the exhale, trying to separate the finger and thumb. There is a notable physical difference. There is something about the exhale, and I invite you to try and do this little exercise with a child or a friend. But it is a fun exercise because your body actually experiences the power of the exhale. When we pass from this life to the next, we don't take a last breath. The body leaves on the exhale. That's what happens. You're releasing. You're literally letting go. And in modern life, we spend much of our time breathing up here in our chest. We don't take in the oxygen that's available to us all the way into our body. We tend to keep it up here. And we do this even unconsciously sitting at desks. The phone is ringing, you're finishing up a memo, somebody is asking you a question, and you're trying to do all of this, and your body starts breathing very shallow. Okay? When you notice this, I would suggest that you do a check and fully exhale. Give yourself 3 breaths. 3 breaths. You can afford 3 breaths to recenter yourself and to tap into that energy that you are not using and is wanting to be available to you. Okay? Now let's move to the next slide. Posture. I'm standing at the moment, but I imagine that many of you are sitting. So, how are you supporting your weight? If you're doing this, you're going to be sore after a few minutes. You can't do this for very long. If you're doing this, other parts of your body will be sore. Can you give yourself an ability to get back into your body by paying attention to where your shoulders are, how your head is set? Your head is the most heavy piece of equipment that you carry in this frame. And there is available to you an infrastructure that, if your head is set properly, can sustain it for a long time, right? One of the things you can do is put yourself up against a wall and touch your spine to the wall. It will feel like you're slouching, but actually, with your spine touching the wall and your head, you will be in a position that can be quite comfortable for a long period of time. Your feet, just a little bit more weight forward versus back on your heels. Don't lift a hip up with putting one foot out, but if you're going to have to be engaged, if you want to be attentive, you want to have that posture that will carry the weight, literally, of your frame, your body, for the period of time that you need to be really attentive. Everything drops to your area of the pelvis. Shoulders drop. Ears are over your shoulders. And even a little bit of a smile will help get rid of these 2 lines in the center of the forehead that people who have a lot of responsibility and worry tend to get. It's the worry lines. You can give yourself some slight exercise, a smile, slight smile, and calm. Relax. The posture has to support your weight in a balanced way. And you can find that by using some of these techniques. Let's move to the next slide. What do I mean by relaxed concentration in the midst of chaos, change, and uncertainty? So when stress comes to us in life, we respond quite naturally with these things that are listed here: fight, flight, or sometimes we freeze. And of course, stress is not a bad thing. Stress is something that stimulates us in ways that allow us to sometimes tap into creativity, move when we need to move, create a sense of purpose. So when we talk about relaxed concentration in the midst of chaos and change and uncertainty, we're talking about, can you attend to what's right here, right now? Can you allow yourself for a few minutes out of every day to not be rushing into narratives that are not reality, but are really attached to your anxiety and fear and stress? Not that those are going to go away, but can you find a time, even a few minutes, 15 minutes out of the entire cycle of a day, can you find that time for yourself to reset? For myself, it's 45 minutes in the mornings and about 30 minutes in the evening. During the day, if things get very pressing, I even have learned to allow myself to relax and concentrate as I'm walking from one place to the next. Let's move to the next slide. I'd like to do a body scan with you now. And this is all leading up to what you might guess is my suggestion for how you can allow yourself some compassion in the midst of chaos. And that is to meditate. It doesn't have a religious connotation when I use this word, but many people attach a religious connotation to it. The meditation form that I recommend to people who are faced with a tremendous amount of suffering, confusion, chaos, is to let go of trying to find the answer, because the answer is not going to come if your total being is occupied with the stress, the anxiety, and the chaos. You have to let go. It's a hard thing to do. So the body scan is one, and we can move to the next slide, in which I want you to just feel for yourself. Where is my head? Where are my ears? Are they over my shoulder? What about my face? Am I relaxing? The brow, even the eyes. Don't close your eyes, because when you close your eyes, the imagination is powerful and it can take over. So relax your eyes. Gaze down to the ground, about 45 degrees in front of you, as though you're looking into a deep valley. But don't disconnect. Use the equipment that you have. Use your vision. And just allow your eyes to relax. Your mouth, relax, maybe a slight smile, and your tongue touching lightly on the roof of your mouth. You may be sitting in a chair or a cushion or the floor or standing. Relax your base. Let everything come down to your base, right around your pelvic area. Let it all drop. You can separate the space in the back of your neck here by having this feeling of your head going up and your shoulder dropping. Your head up, shoulder dropping. It relieves some of the tension right back here. Your hands, when I'm sitting formally for my meditation, I have a particular form. You can put your hands wherever is comfortable for you, so that you can be still, really still, not having a cup of tea, not jotting notes and writing poetry. Your hands just still, somewhere located on the body. Sometimes when I'm meditating lying down, I just put my hands like this on my chest. Sometimes I'll put them palms down on either side of my body. Different times, different places where the comfort is there to allow me to just really be in my body. Let's move to the next slide. You've heard the saying about alignment, the head, the heart, the hands. body, mind, spirit. So the body moves through our physical space at a particular rhythm according to time. The mind sometimes follows. The reason why we started this session with the bells was just literally to give your whole self a chance to be here. And the spirit, it rises in moments that are almost autonomic. It's there always. And it arises as your conditions need them to arise, need it to arise. So I would like to take us through a little bit of an experiment. Usually when I do these kinds of workshops, I'm with people. So I'm able to offer an adjustment, to give feedback. I cannot see you, so you're going to have to do this for yourself, which in many ways is where we ultimately want to go, is to have people understand that you adjust yourself. But because you're here, if we could move to the next slide, I'd like you to acknowledge and receive from me deep gratitude because you've chosen to be here for yourself as well as for others. And you now know that my orientation is one in which I believe that every encounter is the last encounter and it is unique. So sharing your time and energy in quiet is what I'd like to offer at this time. You'll hear a bell. It'll be the beginning of a 5-minute break in which I will be asking Dee to move through some images on your screen that you can connect with before we finish our time. So, excuse me for 1 minute. The bell that I'm going to be ringing is large and it's in a different part of my room. But I'd like to rely on Dee from this point on to take us through the next 4 slides that will end with great faith. We're living in a period of great doubt. And this is not an unusual thing for civilization. What we know is that balance with great doubt can be matched with great faith. The fact that this kind of an organization exists and offers people the kind of support that comes to you in this way is one expression of that great faith. Let's move to the next slide. I'm sharing with you a space that was set up as an art exhibit. Those little tiny squares around the walls are silver point portraits of people who are sources of inspiration here in California. There's a regular group that sits together in meditation. All of you are also welcome to join if you'd like. We meet at 6:30 Pacific time on Wednesday evenings, and it's a silent meditation. Not very much goes on in terms of what is visible, but the energy that people report to us that is generated just by connecting in virtual space in silence together in this form has generated comments along the lines of, my life is so full, I use my Wednesday evenings to simply know that I can have a place to rest. I really appreciate the fact that you and Tutu hold space. Tutu is my partner who made a lot of the art that you saw today. Let's move to the next slide. So I promised that I would leave space for reflections and questions. And Kathy, is this about the right time? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yes, this is perfect.
Okay, so let's see if there are any reflections or questions that people or observations that people may have and want to share.
You want to start with how was that for you? What did you experience when Dee was advancing the slides and you were paying attention to your breath and your posture and you were in a state of relaxed concentration? How was that experience for you? Lori says it felt like falling asleep.
Good. That happens.
Well, I think it's interesting to say like it felt like falling asleep, but she didn't necessarily fall asleep, but that progressive relaxation, that state when you're the hypnagogic state when you're almost sleeping, and then Caitlin said my nervous system felt alive. Gladys says I felt no worries. Galaxy Note 8, whose name I don't know, says felt good, at peace. And Eleanor says my mind felt more sharp, but my body felt at peace. Thanks, Anne. Galaxy Note 8. Lori says no. Lori was the one that said that she felt like it was like falling asleep. No, it was just so quiet in here. I can see out, peaceful. And Emma says felt calm. Thanks.
I'm so glad that some of you did experience a little bit, right? So when you first start a practice of calming your body like this and trying to align, working on the form and the alignment of the energy that you carry in life, what happens is it can feel like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. But there's a point at which, if you keep doing this and you keep practicing, you will notice that you come very alive and attuned to what's going on. So here's an interesting thing that I'd like to share, and that is that we've done such a good job in our society of acquiring information and knowledge. You know, all of our tools now that are available to get us the answers very quickly and also give us an array of answers, um, are available. But what we have not been able to do, and I'm thinking it might be one of the reasons why we have such contentious public discourse, is we have not developed an other sense that actually is the most important in times like this. And that is your ability to read without language.
Your ability to what? I couldn't hear you.
Language. In other words, without knowledge constantly, it's your intuitive sense. Like when you make major decisions about who you will spend the rest of your life with, it is not going to be an answer that comes from writing down all of the factors or doing a calculus. It's going to be because you have a deep feeling about it, right? That's how you make major decisions. You know, making decisions up here that are significant is very limited because we don't have much capacity here in terms of the analysis. And making decisions from here can be pretty fickle because you love somebody one day and you hate them the next. But you know that saying about I have a gut feeling? When you can go into that level of knowing, you're now starting to develop something that a lot of ancestors already knew and worked with. It's how they survived. They couldn't know exactly when danger would gonna come. They couldn't know exactly what actions could be taken before disaster struck, but something led them to do something. So animals actually have this ability, cats and dogs. They know things are going to happen before they start happening, and it shows up in their energetic expression. They're not doing this because they have an ability to calculate every move. You see how well that works in our current state of politics, right? The calculation forgot something about humanity, which is compassion and empathy and love, frankly. Our most significant leaders always came from that place. Not only did they have to be brilliant analysts and calculate what if this and what if that and what if that, but they also had to rely on knowing that they were coming from a place of deep caring,
Wow.
not just for themselves.
In
Next
the
slide.
in the chat, we have some question of where we can join the Wednesday meditation, if that's possible, if it's only in person or if it's also
No,
virtual.
it's virtual. It's virtual. We cannot do in person right now. So I'll send the information to Katie and she can share it out.
Great. Alexis says she loved the breath and hand movement together, experience release. And yes, she says it reminds me about caring about myself. Pamela says, I felt really relaxed. I need to try this every day. I recently had back surgery and need to find a way to focus off the pain. And yes, she says it's important, reminds me about caring about myself and how important it is giving a time to yourself. Lori says physically stretching the neck up while moving the shoulders down made me super aware of all the stress that has been accumulating right there. It was such a good release.
Wonderful.
So they really would like the link to more than one person would like the link to the meditation group.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself wondering, I love the look up. I love the look up because I've been preaching that for a long time. It's like no matter where you are, if you're not in nature, you're in an urban environment, you always have the sky and it's always different and it's always dynamic and changing and it's always beautiful, even when it's like angry or it's dark or there's always just a lot going on. So that I loved the invitation to look up. I thought was wonderful.
I'm in urban part of California in LA, and sometimes the only access to the natural world is up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have, I guess the question is, if I understood the invitation to practice more and to learn more and to, build this into our everyday lives. Do you have any recommendations for working with children around this?
Oh, yeah. Children, of course, love to be more um, physically engaged. I would give them this exercise and see what happens when they are instructed by you now to take a deep breath and very slowly exhale, very slowly. There's a scene in Crouching Tiger. I don't know if any of you saw that movie, but the protagonist is given poison and is going to die. And somebody needs to go and get the antidote, but it's far away. And what his part is to slow down his breath as much as possible. And in doing so, it will allow for him to last longer so that the runner can go and get the antidote and bring it back. And this exercise with kids naturally calms them down. There is another exercise that's really great with kids that has been researched at the medical school at UCLA and has been used when I traveled to India in meditation circles, where you it looks odd, but it's quite a wonderful exercise. And I think they've also done it with some folks who are starting to show early signs of dementia. But it is that you hold the lobes of your ear. Your left arm is closest to your heart, holding your right ear, and your right arm is on top. Your feet are about shoulder length apart, and you take a breath as you squat down as far as you can. Some people can go all the way to the ground. Some people are more limited because of knee issues, but you squat down, taking a breath in, and then when you come up, you exhale, and you do 13 reps of this. Kids love this exercise. Um,
Wow, that's a great one.
my spouse also does it every morning at 67. He can outrun 40-year-olds on the tennis court. He can outlast them. And he swears that this is the exercise that keeps him going. So we heard about it, and then we actually encountered a temple where this is part of their meditation practice, and we were quite surprised. But this knowledge about these practices that have been handed down for many generations is not readily accessible to a lot of us here in this society. But thanks to technology and telecommunications, we actually are seeing more sharing. Certainly, our meditation group on Wednesday nights is available on the internet. We just check in. I have people from DC, Berkeley, Oregon, um, and it's quite unremarkable but challenging because we open and we're silent for 45 minutes. We ask people to be still and check what's happening with their bodies and their minds as they're challenged to remain still in connecting with all of the other people that are there. And the vibrational quality comes through even on the screen.
Wow.
So the next slide is just a reminder that sometimes there just are no words. And silence is a great teacher, especially in times of chaos and uncertainty. Things will come to you if you can let the narratives go. Like when you take a breath, the reason why they tell you to count your breath is it's a device. We're not saying empty your mind. I never instruct a person to empty their mind. It's not possible. You'll obsess about, well, what does that mean? It's just take a breath. A thought will come about the dog that needs to be fed in 20 minutes, and you just let it go. Count the next number, take the breath in. A thought may come about what you have to do tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Let that thought go. Don't stay with the narrative about what that task is that's ahead of you. Go back to the count. So it's take a breath, 1, release, take a breath, 2, Release. Oh, I have to feed the dog tomorrow morning at 8. Let it go. Take a breath. Start over at 1. Make yourself start over every time. You won't get to 10 without a thought entering. But watch your mind, meaning cut the thought off, come back to yourself. And the last slide, if we can move to that, has the website that my spouse Tutu and I have created that has information about the Wednesday night sit. And I can also send it to Katie.
Great. Wow, this was wonderful. And can you just say a few words about Go Compassion? And
yeah. So we really believe, my spouse is an artist, and we really believe that art can be a portal for meditation. And so his work actually is no longer just visual artwork, it is a meditation. And so he did a series of 108 silver point portraits as one body of work called The Faces of Humanity. And it's a series of work that is quite remarkable because it's just line drawings of people's faces, but they seem holistic, is what viewers have often told us. They almost feel like they're going to talk to you in a moment. And we're finishing a project now that is a project designed to use art and conversation as a way to come to a shared narrative about health, equity, and justice in California. We're about to turn that in on the 31st of this month. And it's a wonderful collaboration of digital art, photographic art, line drawings, silver point drawings, and my thumbnail sketches that are descriptions of who these people are. And this work will be available for groups who want to use it as an icebreaker, and we have some ideas on how that could happen. But we're returning it to our foundation sponsor with a suggestion that going forward, they should, in every grant they give, set a certain amount of money aside to have their grantee bring an artist into the picture and the collection of artwork that can then be circulated among other groups.
wow. I'm very intrigued by you're singing my song. I'm very intrigued by conversation and art and compassion all going together, and wondering how we as Be Strong Families, which, our mission is about transformative change through conversation. So I'm wondering how we can help to get involved and help to promote that. So we'll talk.
Oh, when it's completed, I'll definitely be in touch with you to invite you to, request the opportunity. The collection of artwork is called Faces of California, Reflections in the Mirror. And the overall project name, we named it the Mirror Project, because we really wanted to reach diverse individuals who don't agree politically, who don't identify the same racially, ethnically, religiously, in terms of their sexual orientation, just people who make up this very diverse state, and all with the idea of health, equity, and justice being at the center of the work that we were producing.
That sounds really inspiring. And it seems it goes a lot. I'm thinking about our More Perfect Union conversations, and our intention of bringing people together to amplify the things that they want to see, but and how can we amplify?
Yeah.
How can we get to know each other better across differences? How can we honor each other? How can we be with each other? How can we be with each other in truth without hiding or without fear? I think that's where we'd like to go, and I love the idea of art facilitating that.
Yeah.
So I really am curious. I mean, I know we're almost done. I just wondered if there was a minute for you to reflect on your life and career as a civil rights attorney, and the journey that you've been on, and and where you are and how those integrate it. I think you have already when you talk about health, equity, and justice being at the heart of the conversation and of art. But if you have a few words about integrating that passion and that work in the world, in the political world with this um, practice, that would be helpful.
So, for myself, I have had a really interesting s- life trajectory in that I began as a public health person, actually. I was very interested in community health and behavioral sciences, environmental health. I worked with organizations that were concerned about health and safety at a time when we were moving from broken bones and severed limbs to exposures to hazardous materials that would cause cancer, respiratory disease that was irreversible, teratogens that affected people's reproductive health. So all of that was my starting point when I decided I would go to law school. And the reason I decided I wanted to go to law school was because I really wanted to tap into the policy aspect. And so I ended up going to school at King Hall, which is up at UC Davis near the state capitol, because that was sort of my interest in being connected. And it's only 12 miles west of Sacramento. So I did indeed end up working in the Capitol with the Department of Health Services at the time. And it was right when we had passed the Toxic Substances Control Act here in California that gave communities and employees the right to know what kind of hazardous materials they were working with and to advocate for personal protection to be provided. A similar scene to now. And while I was there, as it turns out, I was able to secure a job with a labor organization back in LA. And I did that. I worked with the Firefighters Union, a statewide organization back in LA. And then I started working with other unions doing labor law. That transformed into me then getting a job with a small firm that was representing kids who had been sexually molested. And we represented 18 children who were molested in their church based school. At that time, the insurance carriers had not created exclusions for those kinds of cases. And so we were able at the end of the day to secure very healthy trust funds for each of the kids and their families that would become available to them as they got older, reached the age of majority. But then what happened was my practice morphed into an area that I never thought it would, which was criminal defense. And my last case was with a 17-year-old boy who had a history of being beaten by his father. And he ended up shooting his mother and 10-year-old sister in their home. And I was the defense lawyer. I won that case. That was my last trial. When you get really good at the work in criminal defense, you start getting tougher and tougher cases. And my spirit wasn't there. And I took a long hiatus. That hiatus took me to my Zen practice. And what I learned is that, the universe has this invisible hand that guides. And I'm at 64 now. I've done politics. I did race relations work under President Clinton's administration and as part of his 7-member advisory committee on race. I have run my own practice. I have run a nonprofit dedicated to mediation and dispute resolution. And today I work as a mediator, a senior attorney mediator, handling civil rights cases. California has a very robust civil rights statutory scheme that applies to jobs, housing, hate crimes, human trafficking, and the denial of services and accommodations in business establishments. So all of my cases have to do with discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and a failure to provide reasonable accommodations for people who need them for religious or other reasons, disabilities. Um, and I feel blessed. how did it all come together? I could make a story, but I don't want to. I don't know the answer
No,
now, but that's my story.
it's a beautiful story. I so appreciate you sharing it. Thank you. Really, it's inspiring to me, and I resonate with the com- the the complexity, and the nonlinear dynamic system that we are, and that we exist in. And the narrative tries to make it all fit, and be linear, but that's not how it is,
Right.
life is. Thank you so much, really, for being here. It's 1 o'clock, so we need to close out real soon. But Dee, can you? I just want to tell everybody who's still here that next week we have a big focus on back to school. Today is the last day to register for the Together for Families conference and get a discount using BSF. And then next week, it's all about back to school. And we start with holding space for the conversation. Sarita and I are going to be here, and just what are we thinking? What are we feeling? What are we doing? What's happening? Just to hold the space for that conversation. And then, as you can see from the list here, we have a really robust offering of webinars from people's different perspectives. So Samantha Peterson is going to be doing inclusion, diversity, and families through a Title I programming amidst a pandemic. And Phyllis will be talking about the psychological dimensions of kids' engagement with online and hybrid learning. And Tracy, teachers' tricks for parents, how to encourage and sustain children's motivation for learning. And then really special treat, Nilofer will be here on Friday. Nilofer Hassan, who's one of the key architects of the Strengthening Families Initiative. I mean, she was there and helped develop the Protective Factors framework, and she has a 30-year career in family support. But right now, she is very active as her kids' parent and head of the PTA in her local school. So she's going to talk about connecting as a parent community around school issues despite the pandemic. Was what I really we are sending out the registration today. Tracy, thank you for asking. Dee's on it. She wasn't planning to be support for this webinar, but she's on it, and it will be going out momentarily. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for filling out the poll. And I really what's sticking with me as a result of this webinar, one of the things that's sticking with me so strongly is that how love is at the heart of leadership, and that you need to feel that your leaders care about you, and that they care about what's happening, and that they're coming from a place of true, love and compassion. And I hadn't thought about it that way before. I hadn't thought about, presidents and how being presidential, it's not just about like saying the right things or having an official or professional demeanor. It's about being presidential is about the love, it's about the compassion. So I really thank Angela for being here. She's incredibly busy, and as we all are, but she's incredibly busy, and we're just really grateful. And to our board member, Sylvia Wen, for recommending her. So thank you very, very much, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you next time, and I appreciate it. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Yes, Lori. And oh, I forgot to mention, damn, Lori, I shout out to Lori because Lori helped design the whole Spanish language back to school program. And that we are sending out a blog today with a shout out to you, Lori. But thank you again. And this is by the community for the community. So if you have something you'd like to offer, just email me. We've been blessed by a lot of people. Yes, you can get a certificate. Dee will post information about how to get a certificate. But if you have something you'd like to offer, or someone, one of your colleagues who you think would be great doing a webinar, just put them in touch with me, because this is us, this is us being here for each other and staying strong and positive for ourselves and our kids. So email us for certificates at covid19@bestrongfamilies.net, and we are delighted to give you one. So thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.